Thank you, Tom. Mr. President of the Republic, Madam President of the Sami Parliament of Finland, dear Arctic colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the organizers for the opportunity to participate in the Arctic Biodiversity Congress, which is indeed one of the most important events during the Finnish chairmanship of the Arctic Council. We have now already passed the halfway post of the 2-year Arctic Council chairmanship. The constructive attitude of all Arctic states and organizations representing Arctic indigenous peoples has made it possible to advance common goals and to shape the Arctic agenda. As the President just said, this week will indeed be decisive for advancing the environmental and climate goals that Finland has set for the chairmanship period. The Biodiversity Congress will be followed by an Arctic Environment Ministers meeting, which will hopefully further refine some badly needed targets for Arctic cooperation in climate and environmental issues. Ladies and gentlemen, the experts of Arctic biodiversity know better than anybody what risks climate change will cause to life in our region. It is expected that more animals and plants will be moving to the north because the temperatures are becoming more moderate. Thus, we may experience even sporadic increases in biodiversity in the northern latitudes for some time. However, the species that have adapted to northern conditions are likely to suffer. There's a great risk of disturbances of Arctic habitats and a danger of a general degradation of animal and plant life as a result of climate change. We could say that the Darwinist idea of the survival of the fittest will be tested in a new situation, when life forms will not have the necessary time for evolution or even adaptation. Species which are the most resistant to changes would then be the winners. With some exaggeration, we could ask ourselves whether we will be facing an invasion of cockroaches, rats, and jellyfish. Ladies and gentlemen, the well-known writer Yuval Noah Harari claims that the transition to agriculture as the main source of livelihood was the beginning of the problems that humans are now facing. Be that as it may, favoring cultivated plants and breeding domestic animals in great numbers has definitely reduced biodiversity in large areas. It's time to assess the impact of humans on climate, environment, and biodiversity, and to take a more reasonable course of action, which will not push us toward uncertain destinies. There is no plan B. It is safer to believe in Santa Claus than in our ability to fix climate problems afterwards with technological means. Mitigating and reversing climate change takes concrete, sustained actions. Implementing the Paris Climate Agreement is a necessary first step in slowing down and mitigating climate change, but additional measures in reducing the emissions of short-lived climate pollutants such as black carbon should be taken urgently. On biodiversity, fulfilling the Aichi targets on protected areas is crucial. In the Arctic land areas, this work has progressed quite well, but in establishing Arctic marine protected areas, we are lagging behind with less than half of the target fulfilled. Protecting Arctic nature does not mean making our region into a museum. On the contrary, it's an integral part of ensuring the sustainable use of resources. Environmental degradation is a great risk also to economic and social development. Well-considered regulation of activities negotiated between interested parties, including business organizations, will be a much better way to move forward. The precautionary principle has rarely been applied in guiding human activity. However, last week an important legally binding agreement was signed prohibiting commercial fishing in the Central Arctic Ocean. It was signed between the Arctic states, the most relevant non-Arctic states, and the European Union. This agreement will allow us to develop a better understanding of the changing ecosystems and the movement of species, and it will give us time to put the appropriate conservation and management measures in place. This is an example that should be followed. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end by thanking the CAFF working group and our colleagues in the ministry, in the Finnish Ministry of the Environment, for planning the Biodiversity Congress, and also for the invaluable long-term work that they are doing in the Arctic Council. But I would also like to thank the city of Rovaniemi for hosting this event, just like the city of Rovaniemi has hosted so many other important events during the chairmanship and in the more than 2 decades of Arctic cooperation. Thank you very much.